Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Today, reciters are Sakshi Mataji will be reciting in Sanskrit, and Puja Mataji will be reciting in English from Canto 3, Chapter 27, verses 1 to 15. And at 8:40, there will be bhajan. Namrata Mataji will be singing Bhaja Goranga, and I will be doing the English translation of the bhajan. So thank you so much for joining in. And Sakshi Mataji, whenever you're ready, can you please start with invocation 3 times? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 27, Understanding Material Nature. Text 1. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha. I will just take the Sanskrit. Prakrutisto Purusho Nachyate Prakritergunah Avikarat Akratam Vatam Nirgunatvaj Jalarkavat.
The personality of Godhead said, the personality of Godhead, Kapila, continued. When the living entity is thus unaffected by the modes of material nature, because he is unchanging and does not claim proprietorship, he remains apart from the reactions of the modes, although abiding in a material body, just as the sun remains aloof from its reflection on water.
Mataji, we can't hear you. Hare Krishna.
Sorry. Sa esha yarhi prakrute guneshva vivishajate aham kriya vimudhatma kartarsmitya bhimanyate.
When the soul is under the spell of material nature and false ego, identifying his body as the self, he becomes absorbed in material activities, and by the influence of false ego, he thinks that he is the proprietor of everything.
Tena samsara padavim avashobhetya nivruttah prasangike karmado she sadasanmishrayo nishu.
The conditioned soul, therefore, transmigrates into different species of life, higher and lower, because of his association with the modes of material nature. Unless he is relieved of material activities, he has to accept this position because of his faulty work.
Sorry, Sakshi Mataji, you're on mute again.
Oh, sorry. Artheya avidyamanepi samsplutirna nivartate dhyayato vishayanasya swapne narthagamo yatha.
Actually, a living entity is transcendental to material existence, but because of his mentality of loading it over material nature, his material existential condition does not cease, and just as in a dream, is affected by all sorts of disadvantages.
Atha eva shaneshchittam prasaktam asatam pati bhakti yogena tivrena viraktya cha nayesh dvasham.
It is the duty of every conditioned soul to engage his polluted consciousness, which is now attached to material enjoyment, in very serious devotional service with detachment. Thus, his mind and consciousness will be under full control.
यमादिभिर्योगपथेर् अभ्यासनश्रद्धयान्वितः मयि भावेन सत्येन मत्कथाश्रवणेन च.
One has to become faithful by practicing the controlling process of the yoga system and must elevate himself to the platform of unallowed devotional service by chanting and hearing about me.
सर्वभूतसमत्वेन निर्वैर्नाप्रसङ्गतः ब्रह्मचर्येण मौनेन स्वधर्मेण बलीयसा.
In executing devotional service, one has to see every living entity equally, without enmity towards anyone, yet without intimate connections with anyone. One has to observe celibacy, be grave, and execute his eternal activities, offering the results to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
यत्र च योपलब्धेन सन्तुष्टो भून्मुनिः विविक्तक्षरणः शान्तो मन्मैत्रकरुण आत्मवान्.
For his income, a devotee should be satisfied with what he earns without great difficulty. He should not eat more than what is necessary. He should live in a secluded place and always be thoughtful, peaceful, friendly, compassionate, and self-realized.
सानुबन्धे च देहेऽस्मिन् अकुर्वन् सदा ग्रहं ज्ञानेन दृष्टतत्त्वेन प्रकृते पुरुषस्य च.
One's seeing power should be increased through knowledge of spirit and matter, and one should not unnecessarily identify himself with the body and thus become attracted by bodily relationships.
निवृत्तबुद्ध्यवस्थानो दूरीभूतान्यदर्शनः उपलभ्यात्मनात्मानं चक्षुषेवार्क आत्मदृक्.
One should be situated in the transcendental position beyond the stages of material consciousness and should be aloof from all other conceptions of life. Thus, realizing freedom from false ego, one should see his own self just as he sees the sun in the sky.
मुक्तलिङ्गं सदा भासं समसति प्रतिपद्यते सतो बन्धुम् असच्चक्षुः सर्वानुस्यात्तम् अद्वयम्.
A liberated soul realizes the absolute personality of Godhead, who is transcendental and who is manifest as a reflection even in the false ego. He is the support of material cause and he enters into everything. He is absolute, one without a second, and he is the eyes of the illusory energy.
यथा जलस्थ आभासः स्थलस्तेनावदृश्यते स्वाभासेन तथा सूर्यो जलस्तेन दिवि स्थितः.
The presence of the Supreme Lord can be realized just as the sun is realized, first as a reflection on water, and again as a second reflection on the wall of a room, although the sun itself situated in the sky.
एवं त्रिवृत्तहङ्कारो भूतेन्द्रियमनोमयेः स्वाभासेर्लक्षितोऽनेन सदा भासेन सत्यदृक्.
The self-realized soul is thus reflected first in the threefold ego and then in the body, senses, and mind.
मनो बुद्ध्य अधीश्व इह निद्रया लीनेष्व सति यस्तत्र Vinidro Nirankriyaha.
Although devotee appears to be merged in the five material elements, the objects of material enjoyment, the material senses, and material mind and intelligence is understood to be awake and to be freed from false ego.
Manyamanastadatmanam anashto nashtavan nashte hankarane drashta nashtavitta ivaturaha.
The living entity can vividly feel his existence as the seer, but because of the disappearance of the ego during the state of deep sleep, he falsely takes himself to be lost, like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distressed, thinking himself to be lost. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna, please forgive me for all my mistakes. Hare Krishna.
Jai, Hare Krishna, thank you so much. That was actually wonderfully recited. Sanskrit was by Sakshi Mataji, and English was by Pooja, was a Pratima. But anyway, it was beautifully recited. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll just quickly share my screen and just let me know if you can hear me and see the screen as well.
Can hear you, Prabhuji, and see the
Yeah.
screen as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. Om Glory to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj. My name is Krishna Govinda, and thank you very much for joining today's chat, 12th of April, 2026. We're going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, The Status Quo, Chapter 27, Understanding Material Nature. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskripcha Naram Chaiva Narotanam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashaishu Bhadreshu Niche Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Mutam Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtake. So just a little recap from the previous chapter, chapter 26, which was entitled Fundamental Principles of Mature Nature. We covered quite a lot of topic. Of course, it's a discussion, ongoing discussion between Kapila Dev, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to his mother Devahuti. And Srila Prabhupada's actually got a book on the teachings of Kapila Dev as well. So on chapter 26, the fundamental principles of mature nature, we covered so many things. We covered about how Kapila Dev is explaining to Devahuti about the different elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. Then he goes further on to describing about the ego as well, false ego, and the coverings of the different elements as well within the covering of the spirit soul itself, from the 5 gross elements and the 3 subtle elements as well. Then he goes on to explaining about the different topics about, and specifically he goes more deep into false ego, about who we are, why we're here, and exactly the reason why we tend to think we are the Lord of all that we survey. Everything's me, mine. Everything that we do is because of me. Everything that happens is because of me. We think that we are actually the doer of activities, but in actuality is carried out by the 3 modes of mature nature. We'll just recap on that particular verse from Bhagavad Gita. Then it goes into deeper sort of description about dhyana yoga as well, about meditation and Krishna consciousness, different activities, about controlling the mind, controlling the intelligence as well, and how to change those qualities that's favorable, unfavorable, to those which are unfavorable. So we were talking about spiritual knowledge, how we can accept Krishna Prasada instead of having mature sort of desires, eating food which is not actually offered to the Supreme Lord. We cannot associate with devotees as opposed to associating with non-devotees. But then also talk about different things about the differences between spiritual qualities of a devotee and the material qualities of a non-devotee. And then I think last week and a few weeks before, we discussed about the Purusha avatar, the Virat Rupa form of the Supreme Lord, about his universal form, his transformation, about how he is actually created in the material universe, the manifestation of his skin, his hair, his moustache, his beard, the different properties that come from the manifestation of the Virat Rupa form in the form of herbs, drugs. And then, of course, then it goes on to explaining about his hands and legs are created. And then from the Virat Rupa, Lord Vishnu appeared. So it is quite not easy to always understand. And you may sometimes think, well, why is Krishna explaining so much details about the science of spiritual knowledge? Sometimes you need to have that science in order to be able to understand that, of course, that devotion is the highest form of love for the Supreme Lord, having pure bhakti. But to the non-devotees, they may not understand full bhakti. They may not understand what is the principles behind doing deity worship. What is the principle behind offering food to Krishna, who doesn't eat it when you've taken the plate away from the altar or from the offering? What is the basis of chanting the holy name of the Lord? How do we understand that it's not different from Krishna? Of course, that is the yoga step that we go through from the initial stages of Shraddha onwards until we come to Prema Bhakti, where we understand pure love of Godhead. But to understand that pure love of Godhead, it's also be able to understand the science and the philosophy of this Vedic wisdom. But you have to understand, like, for instance, the gopis in some of the verses it mentions, they're not on the level of intellectual consideration. They don't really see the samskaras, purposes of samskaras or certain rules and regulations. They have so much love for Krishna. They're willing to die for Krishna. And that is the level that we should be obtaining. In fact, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that because our intelligence is so limited, we are not in a position to really fully understand even a small percentage of the qualities, attributes, or even the scientific evidence of the Supreme Lord, let alone us. What about even the the great demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma? Lord Brahma and his Shri Brahma Samhita prayers, it describes that, even though you've given me this intelligence, I still do not fully understand you, Krishna. You play like a little coward boy, play with all the children, you're eating food from your friends, but yet we worship you with awe and reverence. You are the creator of this material universe. We are just simply subjective matters. We're just instruments. We're just servants to serve you, my dear Lord. I do not understand. And even the great personalities, even Arjuna, he didn't really fully understand who Krishna was. He assumed that he was just a friend. And he says that I joked with you, I laughed with you, I shared the same sort of food on your plate with you. Little did I know who you really are. You are the Supreme Personality of God. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma. And then now we're going to be reading from a new chapter, chapter 27, Understanding Material Nature. So the first verse is Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prakriti Stopi Purusho Najyate Prakriti Gune Avikara Akatritvan Nirgunatva Chalakavat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. The personality of God, Kapila continued, when the living entity is thus unaffected by the modes of material nature, because he is unchanging and does not claim proprietorship, he remains apart from the reactions of the modes, although abiding in the material body, just as the sun remains aloof from its reflection on water. Purport. In the previous chapter, Lord Kapila Dev has concluded that simply by beginning the discharge of devotional service, one can attain detachment and transcendental knowledge for understanding the science of God. Here the same principle is confirmed. A person who is detached from the modes of material nature remains just like the sun reflected on water. When the sun is reflected on water, The movement of the water or the coolness or unsteadiness of the water cannot affect the sun. Similarly, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita from Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam 1.2.7. When one engages fully in activities of devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, it becomes just like the sun reflected on water. Although a devotee appears to be in the material world, actually he is in the transcendental world, as the reflection of the sun appears to be on the water, but is many millions of miles away from the water. So one is engaged in the Bhakti Yoga process is nirguna, or unaffected by the qualities of material nature. Avikara means without change. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that each and every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And thus his eternal position is to cooperate or to dovetail his energy with the Supreme Lord. That is his unchanging position. As soon as he employs his energy and activities for sense gratification, this change of position is called vikara. Similarly, even in the spiritual body, when he practices devotional service under the direction of the spiritual master, he comes to the position which is without change, because that is natural duty. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, liberation means reinstatement in one's original position. The original position is one of rendering service to the Lord. Bhakti Yogena Bhaktya. So just to repeat that, the original position is one of rendering service to the Lord. Bhakti Yogena Bhaktya. When one becomes detached from material attraction and engages fully in devotional service, that is changeless. Akar Trivat means not doing anything for sense gratification. When one does something at his own risk, there is a sense of proprietorship and therefore reaction. But when does everything for Krishna, there is no proprietorship over the activities. By the changeless and by not claiming a proprietorship of activities, one can immediately situate himself in the transcendental position in which one is not touched by the modes of material nature, just as the reflection of the sun is unaffected by the water. So it's quite a big, long poem, but a lot of information on there. I just recite the invocation prayers to join in. Om Jnana Timrandasya Jnana Jana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakada Mayam Tadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vishabhana Sata Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyaiva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'd also like to offer my obeisances and prayers and blessings, seek the blessings of our spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Swami, Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Pashta Bhutale, Shrimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane, and ISKCON Founder Church, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Pashta Bhutale, Shrimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane, Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravada Pachayana, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatayana. May they give me permission and also seek the blessings of all the listeners here to speak of the wonderful glories of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the discussions and dialogue between Kapila Dev and his mother Devahuti. May whatever I say be pleasing, truthful, and beneficial. So here it's referring to the personality of Godhead, Sri Bhagavan, who is Kapila, And because he's an authority, we can actually accept whatever he's saying at the moment. So important thing is about our internal nature, the soul itself, its original constitutional position, is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is pure by nature, has all the qualities and attributes of the Supreme Lord, although on a minute level. Many times I've given you the example, like a drop of water in an ocean compared to the mighty ocean. That's all we are. We may have a drop of water may have all the chemical compositions of the ocean, but it's so insignificant. And similarly, the soul is also very insignificant in comparison to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But still, the qualities, attributes are similar to the Supreme Lord, although on a minute level. But importantly, it is mentioning about when we actually detach ourselves from material objectives or material senses, material sense gratification, then there is no real change for the soul itself, because the soul itself has that natural propensity of being pure, having that relationship with the Supreme Lord, having that relationship of pure bhakti. But because the soul is covered by the body, as we mentioned in the previous verses, covered by the gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then the three subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and ego. These 8 coverings are conditioning the soul to not take that favorable steps in the activities of devotion service to the Supreme Lord. So only when we become in contact with a devotee, a pure devotee, do we actually understand the purpose and the reason of a material world. Why are we born here? What is the purpose of life? Why do we suffer? Why do we grow old? Why do we have diseases? Why is there so many conflicts? Why am I never happy? Why is there so much distress in my life? Why is that happiness only temporary? But our original constitutional position as the spirit soul is Satchitananda, full of eternity, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. And here, because we're conditioned by the elements of the 3 modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, even the mode of goodness, it's very temporary. It's also based on personal reflections on what I should achieve. Just like in the verse, Tridada Pisanechena, the Rupisahistuna, Amanina Manadina, Ketanya Sadhari. We should not actually acquire for any recognition, but we should be also ready to offer respects to everyone else. And that is a very difficult thing to do, because in this mature nature, we're always exploited. One species is exploiting another species. One species is taking advantage of another species. One species try to be nice to help others, but they get exploited. And somehow or another, the person who is trying to help this other personality gets hurt very badly. So we regret feeling some sort of compassion to the material world, feeling compassion to those who are less fortunate to ourselves. The reason being because in our own nature, we try our best to help others, but we get burned sometimes. But when we see it in relation to helping others for bringing them closer to the loving propensity of serving the Supreme Lord, then we're actually doing something which is so favorable to the Lord. In this endeavor, there's no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect you one from the most dangerous type of fear. The greatest fear, we have so much fears in our life, whether it's the weather, whether it's just finance, whether it's our health, whether it's people around us, whether it's just phobic that we have in ourselves. We have so much different kind of phobic. But allowing ourselves to serve Krishna in a way that Krishna is pleased, and we're just subservient in serving the Supreme Lord, then surely we favor Krishna's love and reciprocation. For every step you take to Krishna, Krishna takes 10 steps. Fortunately, we don't always see it. And here is a wonderful example Srila Prabhupada gives. Like when we see the reflection of the sun on the water, the ripples on the water is constantly changing by the changes of the material elements, by the wind, or just the unsteadiness of the water. But the sun still remains there on the reflection of the water. even though the sun may be millions and millions of miles away. And Srila Prabhupada has actually compared that sun reflection as a kind sort of in relation to the devotee as well. So the devotee is considered to be like the reflection of the sun in a ripple. It may show externally they've been affected by the three modes of material nature, by the different sort of enemies in our life: anger, lust, greed, pride, envy, illusion. But by nature, they are actually pure, and it's just a reflection, a perverted reflection, by the ripple effect of the water itself. But the devotee is actually compared to the sun, brilliant as the sun, just like the Bhagavatam. Why? Because the devotee has no other desire but to serve the Supreme Lord, has no other desire than to bring those fallen conditioned souls, just like the way we were born into Krishna consciousness, just in the way that we were practicing Krishna consciousness. It may have started very small steps, but gradually as we read, we sort of have a transformation in our heart, our mind, and in intelligence, our words, our speech, our actions, in so many ways. Willing, feeling, thinking, all those things change in a transformation, in a way to serve the devotees and a way to serve the Lord. And actually, it's interesting enough, I'm not sure if anybody, just a thought that came to my mind, I don't know if anybody's read the latest Back to Godhead magazine. I think it's the March, April version. I believe it's got a picture of Advaita Acharya on there, and it talks about Advaita Acharya. But there was one particular verse that stood out for me in reading the Back to Godhead magazine, and I was actually taken back. So just to paraphrase, because I can't remember word for word, it mentioned that those devotees who actually serve in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there may be a hindrance of sense gratification, but the Supreme Lord is so compassionate, he accepts that. So yeah, sure enough, we watch TV. Yeah, sure enough, the odd occasion we may go to the cinema. Sure enough, we may indulge in something, eaten in a restaurant, just for social formalities, because we don't want to be shown as fundamental. Oh, Prabhu, I can't eat anything from outside. I do recall one devotee who came from India. He was so pukka. He wouldn't even eat grains from outside, not even bread. And he would actually constantly tell everybody else, no, you should eat kami food. That sinful reactions will affect you. Grain is the embodiment of sin. And he was preaching in such a very fundamental way to the young youth of Panavasena, as we were 30 years ago, naive as we are. But when I saw him in India some time ago, recently, his mentality had changed quite a lot. He was eating garlic, onions, another thing, although he's very favorable in becoming a devotee. So you have to be really careful not to preach in a way that's very fundamental to other new devotees. Prabhupada was able to, but he was also very compassionate. In the early days of ISKCON, people had long hair, people had smoking, drugs. We hear the story of Shabasunda Prabhu when he was first asked by Srila Prabhupada to carve deity of Lord Jagannath in 1967 for the San Francisco Ratha Yatra, the first one ever to be held outside of India. And he put packs of fags on top of Lord Jagannath where he was carving at. And Srila Prabhupada didn't reprimand him. He did sort of chastise him. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? He merely said, this packet of cigarette is the cause of the difference between you and Lord Jagannath. So he said it in a very subtle way, just saying, this is stopping you from your real love to Lord Jagannath, this packet of fags. So then Shabasunda Prabhu really thought about it, and he said, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm having this self-indulgence, but really my love is for Lord Jagannath. My love is for my Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. And he gave it up. And all those hippies who are following Srila Prabhupada, at the beginning, he was very, very flexible. They wanted to bring all the musical instruments to chant the Hare Krishna holy name. Allen Ginsberg wanted to chant his own tunes of Hare Krishna melody. But Prabhupada was so compassionate. And in doing so, they were taken back by his purity, by his ability to show pure devotion to the Supreme Lord and show that fatherly figure that he cared so much for his disciples. He wasn't just reprimanding them. even like the fact about in the early days in San Francisco, like in New York, there wasn't so many married couples coming to New York, 26 Second Avenue, but specifically in San Francisco, there's a lot of boys and girls coming to the temple during the early days of the programs, just similar to what they had in 26 Second Avenue. And Srila Prabhupada didn't tell them, oh no, you shouldn't have illicit sex, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't have that. Srila Prabhupada did a change for their favor. He made some sort of benefit changes so they could actually become married, and then they could have a Vedic wedding, a Vedic ceremony, where they were actually joined in matrimonial purposes to be husband and wife rather than living as boyfriend girlfriend together. So Srila Prabhupada, from a spiritual intelligence, who was very clever, had to diffuse a mature sort of element or difficulty or obstacle in a way that could be favorable for spiritual perspective. So that's what we should do. And in fact, there's a beautiful verse from Bhagavad Gita. It mentions something along the line, even if one commits the most abominable action, he is considered a sacred person because he's properly situated in his determination. So sometimes we may feel, oh my gosh, I've got to go to work, Christmas dinner at work. If I say no, if I say refuse that, of course, it'll be a vegetarian meal, but you don't like the company of drinking, smoking, and all that in a restaurant. But because of your association to as a devotee, you never know. You can give them a higher taste. You can give them books about Bhagavad Gita. You can talk about subtly about the elements of eating meat, how it affects your consciousness. So they get new association, and then later they get transformed. And at work, I've given out a lot of books of higher taste to colleagues, and they love it. They enjoy reading about the effect of eating meat and how it affects your karma. So some of them change, some of them, of course, they may not. But having that book in their hands, transcendental literature, is a way of actually connecting them to Krishna consciousness. I was going to mention a couple of verses from here as well. Basically, because we were talking about that intelligence that we have, overriding the three modes of material nature. So a couple of verses that came to my mind was from the Shloka Bhagavad Gita. So those devotees are constantly devoted to serving me with love. I give them the understanding by which they come to me. So if you constantly devote your love in services, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, give away, whatever austerities you perform, do that as an offering to me. Yad Karoshi, Yad Karoshi, Yad. Just slipped from the top of my mind. Anyway, I'm sure all of you know better than I do. Yad Karoshi, Yad Ashtashi, Yad Yoshi Tatasi, Yad. That's the verse. Whatever you do, you try and do it for the service of Krishna. And why is that there? Because we want to improve our loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. And the following verse from the Shloka was, I dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. We're all born in ignorance from the moment we're born. But by having that torchlight of knowledge induced in ourselves, it awakens that dormant love for Krishna, removes that darkness within us by that shining lamp. That shining lamp refers to transcendental literature. And the other verse I was going to mention, because it's mentioned about the material nature. So from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse 5. This is the three modes of material nature. Sattva, Rajas, Tama, Iti, Guna, Prakriti, Sambhava, Nibbādananti, Mahabaho, Dehi, Dehinam, Avyayam. Translation. The material nature consists of three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, Almighty Amarjuna, it becomes conditioned by these modes. So even though we may be devotees, reflected on the compared to the sun, but still, when we come in contact with the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, then we become conditioned by them as well. And then going on to that verse from Bhagavad Gita, once again, chapter 3, Karma Yoga, Bhagavad Gita, 3.27. Prakriti kriyamanani gune karmani sarvasha ankara vimudatma kartaha miti manyate. Translation: the spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So because the spirit soul is pure by nature, it's always influenced and bewildered by false ego. Last time we mentioned about the issues about false ego. What is false ego? We're always considering this is mine. I did this. I was the cause of everything. I'm the inertia of everything. It's not because of God. It's not because of somebody else. I did this. It was because of my wealth. I was able to buy this beautiful house. It's because of my support to other people. They actually understood that I was the cause of their happiness or their sort of arrangements for a new job. We're always identifying itself, and that is called false ego. And that's basically the principle of material nature, the existence of material existence, which we covered in the previous chapter with the topics about the fundamental principles of material nature. So it's important to understand that we have to free that false ego from ourselves. Ego, in one way, is very good when you have some positive attribute in relations to whatever you do. You're doing it for Krishna, as I mentioned in the previous verse. Whatever you do it as an activity for Krishna. But as soon as you start thinking, I did this, I'm singing nice kirtans for Krishna, I'm cooking nicely for Krishna, I'm dressing Krishna nicely for Krishna, everybody loves me because I sing so nicely for Krishna, I cook nicely. But Prabhupada's example, he always used to pass whatever he did to who? To his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. He never took any sort of credit for himself. He cried because he felt that whatever the children were doing for Srila Prabhupada, as he used to call them, his dancing white elephants, he felt obliged, not even obliged actually, sorry, that's the wrong word. He said that this is actually thanks to the mercy of my spiritual master, I am not doing anything at all. So once again, you always have to think that whatever you're doing, it's not because of ourselves, we're actually doing it by the mercy of the spiritual master. Yasha Prasada, Bhagavad Prasada, Yasha Prasada, Dagadika Topi, by the grace of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the mercy of the spiritual master, one cannot make spiritual advancement. We always have to think that it's always because of the activities of a devotee that we are able to chant, we're able to serve Krishna, we're able to do different activities for Krishna's service and for his own devotees too. Next verse, text, oops, sorry, wrong page. I think it should be verse 2, yep. Sa isha yahi prakriti gunesha bivishachate ahankriya vibhudatma kata smiti abhimanyate. Translation: when the soul is under the spell of mature nature and false ego, identifying his body as a self, it becomes absorbed in material activities, and by the influence of false ego, he thinks that he is the proprietor of everything. So I was just wondering a little favor, because I've spoken quite a bit. Does anybody want to read the purport at all, please? Just to break a bit of...
Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, Vitali Mataji. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Actually, the conditioned soul is forced to act under the pressure of mode of material nature. The living entity has no independence. When he is under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is free. But when under the impression that he is satisfying his senses, he engages in sense gratificatory activities. He is actually under the spell of material nature. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Prakriti Kriya Man Ani, one acts according to the particular modes of nature he has acquired. Guna refers to the qualities of nature. He is under the qualities of nature, but he falsely thinks that he is the proprietor. His false sense proprietorship can be avoided simply by engaging oneself in devotional service under the direction of the Supreme Lord or his bona fide representative. Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita in the fight, but Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita was trying to accept for himself the responsibility for killing his grandfather and teacher in the fight. But he became freed from that proprietorship of action when he acted under the direction of Krishna. He fought, but he was actually freed from the reactions of fighting. Although in the beginning, when he was non-violent, unwilling to fight, the entire responsibility was upon him. That is the difference between liberation and conditioning. A conditioned soul may be very good and act in the mode of goodness, but still he is conditioned under the spell of material nature. A devotee, however, acts completely under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Thus, his actions may not appear to be of a very high quality to the common man, but devotee has no responsibility. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you very much. So this is quite another beautiful purport by Srila Prabhupada. And it's important that we understand these purports because we may start following many of the principles of Krishna consciousness in a way that is actually suited for ourselves. And we have this misconception that, oh no, this is what the verse is referring to. That's why when Srila Prabhupada mentions in this particular purport about when one engages in sense gratificatory activities, he is actually under the spell of material nature. So what is these sense gratificatory activities? As we understand from the five senses, touch, taste, smell, sight, hear, everything that surrounds us, whether subtly or actually in a gross level, it affects our consciousness. When we hear somebody saying certain things or hear some things, when we're traveling on a bus, on a train, we see so much. When you go in the shops, like today I was cycling past Harrow, and I lived in Harrow for 37 years previously until I moved to Bushy, and there were so many shops of food everywhere, outlets, because we just are so conscious about satisfying our stomach. And even when you spend 40, 50 pounds on food, what happens? You don't really feel that fully satisfied. It's only momentarily. When we're actually seeing certain things from a perspective of pleasing our own senses, we may be temporarily happy for a little while, just like you may have an ice cream and it satisfies you. But when you have a second ice cream, the same flavor or another flavor, it doesn't have the same feeling as you had the first time round, because our material senses are very limited, temporary, and very, very not easily pleased. So that's why here, but when we actually give up that sense of proprietorship, we engage all those activities, all those senses, just like Amarish Maharaj uses all his body parts, senses, in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here it goes on further about Arjuna at the beginning. Even though he's a very pious person, he felt reluctant to fight. Why kill our own kinsmen just for some glorification, for a kingdom? Isn't it better just to let them have the kingdom without fighting? What satisfaction, what happiness will there be by gaining a kingdom, by killing our kinsmen? But then Krishna was explaining to him the reason why he has to carry on those activities. Of course, all of you have read the Bhagavad Gita, so I won't go into detail about that, but specifically, he's also a Kshatriya. His duty is to uphold Dharma. His duty was to protect the inhabitants of their civilization from those who are considered to be more of a demonic, how do you call it? I suppose dynasty, like the Kaurav dynasty in this case. So it's very important that as a devotee, we try and utilize our senses, our mind and intelligence in serving the Supreme Lord. As we mentioned many times, the 9 processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. The first is the most important, is hearing. By hearing, we're actually being able to absorb the qualities and pastimes and attributes of the Supreme Lord, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila, name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Text 3. Tena sapsara pada vim avaso biti anivritaha vashangi ke kama doshe sada asar mishra yonishu. Would anyone like, oh sorry, I'll read the translation if anybody wants to volunteer in the meantime for purport. The conditioned soul therefore transmigrates into different species of life, higher and lower, because of its association with the modes of material nature. Unless he is relieved of material activities, he has to accept this position because of his faulty work. Just quickly read this 1 minute. Again, the conditioned soul therefore transmigrates into different species of life, higher and lower, because of his association with the modes of material nature. Unless he is relieved of material activities, he has to accept this position because of his faulty work. Anybody would like to read the purport?
Can I read, Prabhuji, please?
Yes, Mataji, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Here the word karma dosha means by faulty actions. This refers to any activity, good or bad, performed in this material world. They are all contaminated, faulty actions because of material association. The foolish, conditioned soul may think that he is offering charity by opening hospitals for material benefit or by opening an educational institution for material education, but he does not know that all such work is also faulty because it will not give him relief from the process of transmigration from one body to another. It is clearly stated here, Sad Asan Mishra Yonishu. This means that one may take birth in a very high family, or he may take his birth in higher planets among the demigods for his so called pious activities in the material world. But this work is also faulty because it does not give liberation. To take birth in a nice place or high family does not mean that one avoids undergoing the material tribulations, the pangs of birth, death, old age, and disease. A conditioned soul under the spell of material nature cannot understand that any action he performs for sense gratification is faulty and that only his activities in devotional service to the Lord can give him release from the reaction of faulty activities. Because he does not seize such faulty activities, he has to change to different bodies, some high and some low. This is called samsara padavim, which means this material world from which there is no release. One who desires material liberation has to turn his activities to devotional service. This is no alternative. There is no alternative. Sorry, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hari.
Thank you so much, Kirtida Dalali Mataji. Thank you. So largely recited. Yeah, so this is actually quite self-explanatory, but what it is, I wanted to go a little bit into this the cycle of birth and death. Actually, Mataji was reading from the purport, Samsara Padavim, which means this material world from which there is no release. One who desires material liberation to turn its activities to devotional service. So this is what we were saying earlier on, or trying to explain. But also it mentions something quite important. To take birth in a nice place or a high family does not mean that one avoids undergoing material tribulations, the pangs of birth, death, old age, and disease. So all of us, we do know that we go through this age. I'm probably about twice the age of all of you now, but I try to keep myself fit, try to go cycling, get up early in the morning, do some exercises, but that's not going to prevent me from the ultimate point of death. But what it is, I'm trying to also do my best in reading the Bhagavatam, reading the different kind of processes of performing devotional service. One of the things that really I find fascinating, perhaps if anybody wants to mention anything themselves, it'd be so nice and interesting. I know we don't have too many minutes. We just pray to Namrata Mataji. She doesn't look at the time. What is it that causes us to feel a bit of anxiety? I mean, there's so much anxiety in our life, but also there's so much happiness. But when somebody tells you about reincarnation, it's very, very difficult to make them understand. They just perceive that this life is it. So you're born from your family, your mom and dad, they raise you, they take care of you. You go to kindergarten, you go to school, you go to high school, then you go to college, university, you get a job, you get married, get a mortgage, you have children. And there's a cycle that we all go through. But something really interesting, how many species of life are there? I'll just share it with you. So from the Sanskrit verse, Padma Purana, Jalaja Nava Lakshani Stavara Laksha Vipsati Krimaya Ruja Samkyaka Pakshi Namdasha Lakshanam Trimsa Lakshani Pashava Chatu Lakshani Manusaha. So basically it's a little breakdown of, there is actually 8,400,000 species of life. So of the Jala aquatics, there's 900,000 species living in water. Stavara, which is immovable, like species of trees, plants, vegetation, flowers, that sort of thing. There's 2 million types of species of life. In terms of like reptiles and insects, Gramaya, there is 1,100,000 species of life. Bakshinam birds, there's almost 1 million types of species of birds. Pashava, this refers to beasts, land, animals, quadrupeds, or animals with 4 legs. 3 million species of life. And for Manusa, humans, there's 400,000 species of human-like beings. And we're actually in a very fortunate position because we have this human form of life. We have that intelligence. We have that ability to make decisions, yes or no. We're no different from any of the other species of life. We mate, eat, defend, and sleep. But there's a level of intelligence that we can correct ourselves for any mistakes that we make and understand the purpose of life. What are we here for? And in the Bhagavad Gita, it mentions that whatever state of being one remembers at the time of death, that state he will attain. So if you're thinking about a tiger, if you're thinking about a tree, if you're thinking about even a woman, thinking about a man, somebody that you may be very attached to in your next life, who knows? You could become a man, a woman, a tree, depending on your life, your status, how you behave, your morals, your principles, your qualities, your association with other people, how you behave towards other people. If you are mean, very aggressive, if you are a criminal, if you're a murderer, you get your repercussions in your next life. But the nice, favorable thing that Krishna says, but for one who at the end of his life remembers me alone, attains my nature of this, there is no debt. So who wants to remember Krishna all the time? Nobody. So sad.
Me too.
All of us, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
I'm so glad somebody's listening. Somebody's very happy. They want to remember Krishna. Right now, I have a picture of Radharani in front of me. So I'm praying that I remember Srimati Radharani, that I could be her maidservant. I try and think the beautiful verse from the Tulsi prayers. Please allow me to be your maidservant, a maidservant to Tulsi Maharani. Why? Because Tulsi Maharani is very dear to Krishna. It's placed on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Tulsi Maharani is also an intimate associate of Srimati Radharani. And we have to try our best. Time is taken away every second of our life. With all the money, with all the gold in our life, we won't bring that second back. But what we can do is try and utilize it in a way that we can serve the devotees, we can serve Krishna, we can continue practicing devotional service in whatever way we can. And once again, please do remember the verse I mentioned to you earlier on from Back to Godhead. If I do recall that particular verse, I'll share it with you next week. It mentions that even though you may be inclined in devotional service, even though you are dedicated to yourself in devotional service, there may be some inclination of sense gratification. But the Supreme Lord is so kind and so merciful that he allows that to take place. And the other verse which I mentioned from Bhagavad Gita, even if you commit the most abominable action, he is considered a saintly person. Can you imagine Krishna saying that? You may commit abominable action. Somehow or another in your life, you may have killed somebody. Somehow or another, you've eaten meat. Somehow or another, you've done something to hurt somebody's feelings. Somebody you made them cry. You upset them. You offended them in so many ways. But he's still considered a saintly person. But it's important that you read the purport of that particular verse from the Bhagavad Gita, because Srila Prabhupada mentions that you may have committed that sinful activities. You may have committed some abominable action, causing harm and distress to someone else, but still that's not a key, or what's the right word Prabhupada used? That's not a message to allow you to continue doing that service. You learn from that mistake. You don't do that mistake again, So you have to learn every time. If you don't feel guilty, if you don't feel repent, if you don't feel some sort of sadness of what and how you behave to somebody else, offended whether it's a devotee or non-devotee, then if you don't have any feeling of remorse, then certainly you're not advancing in your spiritual life. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says a beautiful verse, Amara Jivana. He says, I feel happy when I see other people suffer, and I feel remorse when I see others happy. So in other words, he's actually, of course, a pure devotee, but what he's trying to say, exactly what we feel when we see other people happy, smiling, laughing, very, very comfortable in their life, we feel a bit remorse, we feel a bit jealousy, we feel a bit of envy. But when we see them suffering, we sort of laugh in ourselves. Well, in me, none of you do. We laugh, we think, they deserve it. They were like this to me, they were like that to them, they were like this, they're eating meat. We shouldn't feel like that at all. We should be compassionate to all living entities. Trinadapi Sadechana, Taropi Saistuna, Manina Manadena Ketanya Sadari. The devotees always feel unhappy when they see others unhappy. That's how our mood should be as well. So I'll pass it on to you. Sorry for taking a bit more time than I normally do. I'll pass it to you, Namrata Mataji. Please forgive me for any offenses and any mistakes. Please pray that Krishna could give me the intelligence not to make those mistakes. Thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhuji. Beautifully explained. Maybe, Prabhuji, can I share one reflection, if I may, before we go into the bhajan?
Yes, sure, of course.
All today, Prabhuji. So Prabhuji, you beautifully explained, first of all, my humble obeisances to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhuji, my reflection was, when you said about the sense gratification and the material stuff that we do in life, or I do in life, it's a bit like, and my mom keeps telling me that, you should go to cinema, you should do all the things because your kids want to do it. You can't not go because they're turning 16 and 18 this year, Prabhuji, and they're not into Krishna consciousness yet. But the deal is that I come to wherever they want to go, but they also come to the manor for all the festivals. So I've been very lucky, Prabhuji, that since last year, every festivals they're trying to come, and I noticed that normally they would do the Dhanvat and then they'll sit outside and wait for me. But this time during Ram Navami, they sat in the temple with me for a few minutes, and I thought, okay, if this means that I have to go to cinema with them or go and watch cricket with them or do stuff with them, I'm okay to do that because they are also making an effort, a little bit of effort to come and sit with me and also read a Bhagavad Gita sloka when I ask them to read it. So I'm doing the self gratification thing with the hope that the kids would also come more into Krishna consciousness. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, Prabhuji, but yes, leaving it to Krishna, Radharani, and Srila Prabhupada.
No, you're doing the wonderful thing, Namrata Mataji, because your objective as a parent is to give protection to your children, just like we see the stories of how Ramachandra, Bhagavan, even though his father exiled him out, but still he had so much love and compassion for his father. But here, in a similar way, the parents, it's their duty to still support their parents. I know I should keep this very confidential because sometimes certain things shouldn't be mentioned to others, but I won't mention the name. One parent, their children were started to eat meat, and they rejected that child. And I felt very hurt. I was thinking, a devotee should never do that. So there may be an inclination where somebody may take up some gambling, some bad habits, or bad association. We just don't know what these children are going through. You know, you can see social media, the influence of people, influence of everything. Even myself, I have to keep protecting my son and daughter, even though they're 28 and 23. Please come to the temple. Please chant around. Please come to the temple. So Namrata Mataji, what you're doing is, you know, you can't sort of stop them from doing certain activities, but slowly, giving them prasadam. How are you? What are you doing? You know, is there any way that we can help you? And when you develop that friendship rather than parental sort of feeling, they become more, hey, mom, you're far out. You're so cool. You come to the movies with us. Hey, that's great. You know, Toy Story 5's coming out soon. I used to take my children to the cinemas too. But there was times when I used to take my children to Krishna Club and they used to find it boring because they kept on doing the same old activities all the time and said, Dad, we don't want to go. So I let them do other things. And they enjoyed more, sometimes let them go by doing certain things which were in their favor as well. And now, when they reflect back, they're grown up. They said, Dad, gosh, you made us come to the temple. You made us do this, made us do that. And I'm so grateful to you because I've seen my other school friends, some of them have gone to prison, some of them have turned from boy to girl, some of them have, you know, had one marriage and broken up. So yeah, Namrata Mataji, just be really best friends with them and just kindly preach to them in a way that's not too heavy, just like what I mentioned earlier on. Hey, you shouldn't be eating bread from outside. You shouldn't eat chocolate. You know, you shouldn't be watching movies or TV. The material world is so strong. We just have to just dovetail how much we give to them. That's all. Yeah. And I'm sure that may be the same case for many of you. Many of you have children, young ones, elder ones, perhaps, you know, like in your grandchildren as well. So it's so important that you don't sort of force them, but show them love and reciprocation. That's the best way. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that realization. Anybody else with realizations, or did you want to go into the song, Namrata Mataji? Are you on mute? Yeah,
Yes. So,
and you've got an echo too. Unless it's the demigods in your house. I'll just share the song, unless if she's not able to. Namrata Mataji, you're still on mute, yeah?
yeah, sorry, Prabhuji, I had two PC and mobile on. My apologies. My PC just ran out of charge. Sorry.
Okay.
Prabhuji, are you able to share? Because my PC, I need to go downstairs to get the charger.
Yeah, sure, of course. Which song was it, Mataji?
So it's Bhaja Gauranga, Prabhuji.
Okay, yeah, sure, thank you.
Thank you. So for today, we have our dear Shabani Mataji who will be doing the English recitation. And once she's done the recitation, I'll sing the bhajan.
It's a beautiful song, this is.
Yes, Prabhuji, it's my favorite song, Prabhuji.
Yeah, oh, that's good. Thank you, Jyoti Mataji. So, Jyoti Mataji, are you going to be singing?
Sorry, Prabhuji. We use the same chat group, but actually it's Namrata. It says Jyoti, but it's actually Namrata. So I'll be singing,
Sorry.
Prabhuji.
Oh,
No, it's okay,
sorry.
Prabhuji.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry. So you can just say the intro. Bhaja Gauranga Ka Gauranga, yeah?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, and Shabani Mataji will do the translation. Thank you, Prabhuji. When you're ready, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you, Namrata Mataji, so much. Hare Krishna. Translation. Worship Lord Gauranga. Chant Gauranga. Speak about Lord Gauranga only. Those who worships Lord Gauranga is indeed my life and soul. Chanting Gauranga. Go out with your arms raised, dancing and dancing. By chanting Gauranga and worshipping him, one's miseries will end. Lord Nityananda Prabhu originally chanted the refrain of this song. This is typically sung in the Bengali morning raga. The alternate for the second line is the refrain is Je Jan Amar Gora Baje Se Hoy Amar Pranare. There are additional verses that are sung in bhajan style that follow the refrain. The translation and the transliteration of the verses would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Shabani
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna, Hare Krishna. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderfully recited, as always, Mataji. Haribol. Prabhuji, you can hear me, right? Because I'm through my mobile now.
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you, Mataji.
Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gaurango Laha Gaurangero Namere Bhaja Gaurango Kaha Gaurango Laha Gaurangero Namere Jai Jana Gaurango Bhaje Se hoye amara prane re Jai Jana Gaurango Bhaje Se hoye amara prane re Bhaje Gaurango Kaha Gaurango Laha Gaurangero Namere Gauranga Bolia Tu Bohu Tulia Nachiya nachiya bidavare Gauranga bolia dubuhi tulia Nachiya nachiya bidavare Bhaja Gaurango kaha Gaurango Laha Gaurangero namere Gaurango bhajile Gaurango japile Hoya dukhe gira absan re Gaurango bajile tu Gaurango japile Hoya dukhe gira absan re Bhaja Gaurango kaha Gaurango Laha Gaurangero namare Jai Jana Gaurango Bhaje Te hoye amara prane re Bhaja Gaurango Kaha Gaurango Laha Gaurangero namere Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhaja Gaurango Kaha Gaurango Laha Gaurangero Namere Hari Bol. Thank you, Prabhuji, and everybody for the opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Oh, it's so beautiful, that was. Thank you so much. And Namrata Mataji, I know you're super shy. Are you able to?
I'm never shy,
Sorry.
Prabhuji, but I can put my video on. Sorry,
Yeah,
Prabhuji.
so beautiful.
Sorry. No, it's okay.
Yeah, Namrata Mataji, really beautiful singing. Yeah.
All glories to
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you so much. You sang so beautifully. Are
Thank you,
are you Bengali by any chance?
No, Prabhuji. I am Gujarati, Prabhuji.
Oh, Gujarati. Okay.
Yeah,
Go chat about it, right? Yeah?
Ekdam jordar, Prabhu. Oh, Krishna's glory. Ekdam
No,
mast.
thank you. That was so beautifully sung. Thank you so nicely.
Srila Prabhupada.
And Sunny, try to encourage all your children to participate in these kind of songs as well. I know there may, at least one thing, if you teach them mridanga or harmonium, then that way from another sort of academic point of view, they can learn and utilize those talents in Krishna service as well. Yeah, that really
Yes,
helps.
Prabhuji.
That's what I did with my children, and they love playing the harmonium and play the mridanga as well. So, yeah.
Very
Thank
well.
you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. All your blessings and Krishna's blessing. Thank you,
Yeah.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
And thank you, everyone. Everyone, has anybody got any comments or before we finish off? Otherwise, have a wonderful week and forgive me for my offenses once again. Okay. Panchakalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitana pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I don't think got the Vaishnava Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna,
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the
Prabhuji.
very nice
Thank you
class.
for the nice
Thank you,
class.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.